Alrighty, guys. Hope everyone had a good weekend. We're picking up right where we left off. Let's try to keep the momentum up. Just trying to keep things as tight as possible in terms of what I'm watching. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a struggle to find what I liked. I've been trying to avoid shorts. You guys kind of know, but still a small pocket where we could get a short off this week, and then going into the 1017 OPEX. Right, I expect things to turn and start looking to the upside again. This could just ultimately end up being lower highs, but I still want to try to look long going into end of year. Obviously, things could change. It's important to be like water, right, and be able to kind of shift however the chart sees fit. Just to start the week off, though, I still really like AMD. I've been talking about AMD distribution for quite some time. I've been drawing how I think that this is essentially a redistribution here within this consolidation. You guys, that's how I caught that short on Friday/Thursday. Remember, I tried to take it on a weekly expiration. I just took a small loss on that one, trying to catch this because I was expecting the UTAD here. And it went a little bit higher than I wanted. I closed it, and then I took it literally the next day. So I ended up catching like 45-50% on that one. Not too crazy of size, just about like 15 cons or so. But yeah, this looks pretty good, and we're at a very pivotal point. I was going to add into some longer dated expirations, but we didn't get enough clarity in my opinion. But really just kind of looking at this, right? I mean, we had a sell climax down here. We ended up pushing up. We had automatic reaction, secondary test, which is slightly above the sell climax down here. We ended up kind of pushing up ever so slightly, minor side of weakness, which was down here, right? And then we had an up thrust, and the up thrust can be kind of considered if we use the close here, or the open, at 163.54. Up thrust would have been here with a slight breach above, right? And then we ended up pulling back down. We had another test candle here. We consolidated, and then we popped and had our UTAD, right? That's why I was bearish as it broke out when a lot of FinTwit was bullish. I'm never going to buy these, right? I would prefer to buy the pullback and the essentially the retest if it manages to close above. And in this case, we had a UTAD. We pulled down and we kind of caught a bounce off of 164.53, or if you guys want to pull this down a little bit lower, 163. It's about $1 of range, right, where it could have bounced from. I kind of liked it off that 164 flat spot, right, which was that gap fill. Now what ends up happening, right? We bounce off of this level. Do we get a test candle, right? Do we get something like this that ends up pulling back down, right, and then pushes up, which obviously it did retest. Now does it get a lower high off of this spot? And if it does get a lower high, you're really looking for exhaustion there, a break underneath, and a retest of this range here, right? And that's essentially where we're kind of looking for the entry point, right here, maybe speculative size here, right? That's really what we're looking for. So we're in this test phase here, and if we break back down into this old range, right? So remember, we're just kind of drawing this stuff here. It's two lines technically, 164.53 to 164 flat. It's probably going to come to the bottom of the range, guys. It's going to pull back down underneath, right? If it tests this and it retests 164, 164.50, and it fails to get back above and we start to see lower highs, what's likely going to happen is a big drop down into the middle of the range, right? So the equilibrium, so somewhere in the middle. And what it's likely going to do is give us another LPSY, right? So another push down, another lower high, push back down here, probably come down into like the sell climax low, which would be like right around 149-ish. And then another LPSY, right? Break down underneath, micro sign of weakness, or minor sign of weakness. I don't know why I said micro. And then 146 would probably be our interim target. And then fulfillment would be kind of like another LPSY. That retest 146.24, and then a breakdown underneath that into 138. And then from there, I would be looking to long the stock, right? But big thing here is just seeing what ends up happening this week, right? Do we get a pop, and does that pop end up fading before we get back to these highs here, right? So it's important to have this marked out around 171. Do we start to fizzle out leading into that spot? Is it pushing up on a divergence with weak volume? Did we get a nasty daily close? Does the hourly give some kind of shooting star or some kind of, gross looking candle on anemic volume? I might take some starters here, but really what we're looking for is a break underneath 164 to 164.53 and another test, right, underneath this and kind of rejecting at this spot. That's where I would add full size, and then from there, what we're looking to take is a big move down into the middle of this range, possibly the lower extreme of this range. So like 155, 156. Expect another pop, right? So another LPSY, and then a big move down into 146. And that would be the first big TP for me, where I would take profits on the position. And then, yeah, kind of just break even stop loss and wait for this to pull all the way down into 138. But this name doesn't look too good. Like I said, I don't want to take shorts, but the chart is kind of like pointing out very clearly that this could be a redistribution, and we just saw the UTAD. So it's important to wait for those test candles. Important to wait for the break under 164 and a retest of 164, and if it doesn't get back above, it's likely going to trade back to the bottom of this liquidity, right? So the bottom of this zone, so 150, 151, somewhere in that range, and then a move to 146, right? So that's the number one focus for me. Absolutely love how this is working, or not working, but looking, and we've seen a lot of high volume sell candles on this as well. So if this name just looks weak, I do think this name can really quickly come down to 146 and then 138, shake out a lot of the longs that were kind of developed in this range here. I think it would shake out a lot of people, and then I would be looking to go long off of 138 for a potential move all the way back up, right? And this is where, if you're a bull on AMD, hopefully this is some good news. I'd be looking for a move back up into the 180s, and then potentially by end of year, maybe midway through 2026, I think this can push all the way to 203 to 207. So if we can get an entry down here, guys, I mean, that's a massive move just on the underlying itself. We'd be looking at about a 50% move. So that is kind of what I'm looking for on AMD. Short side with the redistribution in play, and then once we kind of fulfill the 138 gap fill, I think the redistribution would be over, and then I think that would be like a bottoming event, and then we'll be looking for a move back up to 207, 203. I would grab shares, and once again, I'd probably grab some leaps. This name's a little bit more liquid. I know I said I would do the same thing on Lulu, but the chain is very, very awful, right? It's just terrible. The spread's like 60, 70 bucks between the bid ask, so this will be a lot tighter, and I think we can comfortably grab leaps and shares on this as well. So this is probably the number one focus for me that I just want to cover really quickly. So yeah, I would say, maybe starters on the first exhaustion sign, or the first like little bounce that we get. So maybe Monday, if we end up bouncing off of this, like I said, maybe just grab some starters. If we get some kind of like test there, and then really this is a size and opportunity if we get another test of that here at 164 to 164.53, full size, looking for 146, right? And then, like I said, just expect midway to get another hard bounce, some kind of lower high, and then look for this to break all the way down into 146. And then we'd be trimming and then holding runners for the remaining, 5% or so down into 138. It might take a little bit of time. I would just kind of read the tape and read the daily candles. We might not even get to 138, but to kind of in this range here, guys, this little last 5%, I'd be looking for long. So that's going to be it for AMD coverage. And, I really like this chart setup. All right, keeping this one super short and sweet. UNH still really, really strong tape, guys. The past 2 or 3 days have been really nice in terms of a breakout. The tightening of the spread has been really nice into the EMAs, with the EMAs really just supporting price and kind of keeping it afloat. Really hasn't cracked below the 9. Obviously, we saw a little bit back here in like September 20th, I would just say till September 22nd was the closest we got to the 20, but just a strong tape. It's really been performing well versus tech. Obviously, tech and some of those speculative names within the AI theme have sold off recently with like Hood, Palantir, NVIDIA, AMD. A lot of the names have just seen a weaker tape, and the rotation into healthcare is starting to kind of play out. And we're starting to see continuation to the upside. This was not the best candle on Friday. We saw a breakout through this high here. I would have preferred to have seen a breakout through 362.31 and then a pullback in base, and then I would have reloaded my options. But looking at this daily candle, I did trim right around 70%. I saw a peak of like 110, 120%. But this is still a really nice chart, guys. If this ends up selling off a little bit, I just want to see a divergence and a pullback into 353.72. So just this gap that we made here on Thursday. And if it can base this Thursday high, this kind of lines up with this lower high that we were gauging this flag or this higher low off of. If it can base here at 353, The 9 EMA catches up a little bit. I think this is just going to be another higher low that bases the previous lower high. So, I would look for a roll and just have two different options positions. I still have runners on the 380, or I'm sorry, the 400 call for December. I would just pair that with maybe a shorter dated 380 call if we can base 350, 372, right? Just base this spot here, get a divergence on the pullback. We would look for a breakout above 362, so this high here, pull back and base, and then maybe take another position, even shorter dated, or just add into the winner. I'm not too sure how I'd go about that, but two different entry opportunities, and I'll just kind of highlight both of them here, right? This is really what I'm looking for. Pull back to 350, 372. If it breaks out above 362, expect a pullback and a base onto 362. And if it bases that, we could have two different options positions, both shorter dated, and we would just be looking for the fulfillment up into 378.75 using the 380 calls and whatever we have left over on the December. So this is still a fantastic chart. Very, very strong tape. Like I said, the rotation looks healthy. It looks good. We're kind of seeing what we need to see with this relative to tech. Strong bidder in the tape, obviously, and there was some profit taking into that high. We expected that. But, I was up like 120%. The daily candle just kind of gave me a little bit of signs just to trim. So I did trim. Now, still roll opportunities on this one. It just don't take it off your watch list. This is still one of the better charts. But now it gives two different entry opportunities, which I like a lot. So I still want to keep this at the forefront of my focus list. So I'm just pairing this with AMD. Obviously, one's a long, one's a short, but they have been working really nicely off of each other. So definitely still keep this name on watch here, okay? All right, I obviously talked about Tesla back here, and it got away. But clearly, right, there's still opportunity here. A lot of these names, guys, that have been trading like this have been making new all-time highs. If we are to see a parabolic run into the end of the year, right, in November/December, I think Tesla has to be at the forefront. So really, Tesla, not a pretty candle here. It looks like it was just a target-to-target trade. So the consolidation, a push into this gap here at 404, and then a quick trade up into this gap here at 449.52 to 454.13. And then we clearly saw some profit taking. There's no way around that. But I still like this if it can obviously have profit takers, and the profit takers are mitigated as we pull back down into like 396 to 404. You guys, I don't know if you guys saw, but like Elon's average or where he was buying was like 380 to 400. So I expect a big buyer to step in if we pull back down into 404 to like 396. So fingers crossed that we do see some additional weakness on Tesla over the next like week or two. Even just this week would be fantastic with like a gap down. It did pull down into the 920, right? So if you guys just take a look, there was a clear buyer that stepped in off the 20-day. But if we can just see a little bit more weakness, guys, and this pulls down, I think there's a really nice opportunity if it can pull back and retest this previous gap at 404 from back here, which was never retested, mind you. It had like one singular day where it did pull back down, but it left an open gap back here, right? So if we take a look, there was a clear gap up here within this gap, right? So if this can pull back down into 404, see a little bit of additional weakness that pulls into 395, I think there's an opportunity here for it to consolidate, right before its earnings, which is October 22nd, and then potentially get kind of an earnings liftoff, right, where it ends up popping because of earnings, then has a continuation upwards into the 454 gap, and then kind of pulls back and then bases this as support, and then kind of, I would say, trades for a new high. So there's it's an if this then that type situation. Clearly we could have a gap up. There was clearly a buyer at the end of day on Tesla, but really I'm looking for a little bit more downside into 404 to 395. 395 is kind of that mark where I would be looking to take an entry. And if we can see a clear buyer off 395, I really like the 490 or $500 calls, guys. Kind of, I would say end of October, early November. That's usually the best seasonality for Tesla as well. And I don't always use that with my trading. But like I said, that September weakness that we see in a lot of these names, especially the laggers or anything that's kind of had a big breakout and is simply pulling back on that weakness, is a fantastic opportunity. So Tesla, it looks really good. A lot of people are kind of scared on this one because I think a lot of people's averages were somewhere up here. Obviously there's a few that took the consolidation here, but really now the opportunity aligns. If this can pull back, it can base 395 to 404. And just kind of hold this general range, kind of consolidate, or maybe we see one strong daily buyer or like a weekly close on this or something like that. that really gives us indication that that's the bottom. And it's, like I said, retesting perfectly this previous gap fill from here alongside this old, or I guess newfound gap at 395. We should see a pop, a pullback in base of 404 for like a consecutive higher low, and then I think we can rally right back up into this 454, 449 gap and turn that into support. And then I think from there we can see a rally up into the highs of around like 488 and then some, right? So am going to keep Tesla on watch. It's not my favorite chart. That's why it's kind of third. Obviously, kind of a riskier name as well, especially with the run that it's already seen. But I do think there could be a spark here from earnings. So just kind of keeping this on the back end of a watch list. Just going to have it on a side chart and just kind of keep an eye. And really, this is only actionable if we can see further downside that's somewhat mitigated in that range, guys, from 395 to 404. I feel like I've said that like 10 times, but that is the biggest spot here for this chart. So we'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, if we gap up and we see, a big move that occurred off of that 415.20 day, I'll just take it off the watch list, and I'm not too concerned about trading it unless it comes down lower. I'm not going to be trading into a gap up or any strength up in the highs. So that's going to be another watch for me, and then I'll take a look at one more chart, which is Meta. I've been talking about the distribution on that for a long time. Still think it's in play. I'll show you guys the chart really quickly. All right, my colors are going to be a little bit off on this one. It's going to look a little janky, but this is played out almost perfect, guys. This went a little bit higher than I thought. These usually do for these LPSYs, but I've been talking about how this was the buy climax. We had the up thrust. Then on the higher time frames, right, this was just a UTAD on this little breakout through here. We did see the UTAD, we saw a pullback for the test, and then we saw an LPSY on the weekly. And this is looking gruesome on the weekly, guys. Virtually no bid this week, and it pulled down into like the 21 day on the weekly. And really, I think this kind of comes down to this gap fill here, right? I mean, I've had this drawn for so long, but it kind of comes down to this gap fill of 695. And really what I think could happen, guys, is a breakdown underneath this swing low. So this is actually an important spot to mark, which is clearly here, like 710. If it breaks under 710, I'm actually not looking to short this, guys, if I'm being completely honest. I'm hoping for a gap down this week, just continued sell-off this week. And I expect some kind of bounce off of 695, right? If it can hold 695, I do think that we get some kind of like OPEX movement where this could bounce all the way back up, right? If it bounces back up, I'm actually kind of curious to trade the long side, even though I have a bearish bias. I think this could be a nice double dipper, as I like to say, where this could just be a push back up that we can take advantage of, knowing what's going to happen. Maybe a move back up into 635. And if it does that, we see a buyer off 695. I would actually be interested in taking like October 17th, maybe early November 735 calls, and then looking for a bounce up into 734, right? If it hits 734, I would then be looking to flip bearish, knowing this is the LPSY, kind of the retest of this UTAD range, right? If we just take a look, I can just kind of see it now, right? If we take a look here, right, kind of like the bottom of this old distribution range, this would be kind of like your break of structure as well, right? Kind of this low that I have drawn here. Right, hopefully this kind of lines up for you guys. You guys can see that'd be a really nice retest of that old distribution range low, as well as the gap. I would expect the LPSY on the daily to be there. And then I'd be looking to potentially flip short here. We don't want to flip just because it hits the level. We'd obviously need to see a seller and some kind of confirmation on the daily and or weekly. But, starting a position, looking for this to pull all the way back down underneath 695. Another retest of 695, which would be your minor sign of weakness, and then a retest or an LPSY off of that. And then I think this can keep going, guys. I'm being completely honest. I would expect this to push all the way back down to 630. Off of 630, right, there's another roll opportunity where we could get another bounce, maybe like a redistribution that kind of sets up similar to what we saw in AMD. And then I think this can pull all the way down into 592, guys. I'm not even kidding. I think this can pull down into 592. You guys know, if you guys have been in here for a while, I've been tracking this for so long, and I've been targeting 550, and I think this absolutely could happen. Is it going to be a process? Yes. Is it going to require taking profits on things and rolling into positions and being in and out? Yes, absolutely. But there could be opportunity for one singular core position that targets 550 for like maybe I don't know, mid 2026, end of 2026, or what you can do is just, like I said, just treat these distribution ranges as like onions, right? Trade one range or one layer of it, and here, once it breaks down, right, you can trade this layer here. Once it breaks under that, right, and retest, you can trade this layer here. There's a lot of opportunity that can happen with distributions, but when the time comes, you can't really be afraid. Just you can take a couple like small positions. They will pay very well, right? The short side does pay well, but really you don't want to expose yourself too much because we've seen it, right? With the short side, things can change really quickly. So it's important to be able to act very quickly if things start to go against you or the chart doesn't shape up in your favor. But yeah, the Meta is another name that I'm looking at. Like I said, just to reiterate things, beginning of the week, I want to see a sell-off into 695. Ideally, by the end of the week, we're at 695. We see a bidder show up off 695, which is, once again, this gap here. If we can see that, probably October 17th or late October, beginning of November, 735 calls just for that OPEC squeeze, right? If we get a push up into 735, take profits, reevaluate, maybe hold a runner or two of the call side, see if we can get the LPSY. If we see some kind of weakness off of this, hold a short, look for a move down. I would say back to 695, and then ideally it breaks under 695. We take profits into 695. It retests 695 from below. Micro sign of weakness, or I keep saying micro, guys. What am I doing? Minor sign of weakness along with the LPSY. Add another position to target the lower extreme here at 630, right? Take 630 puts, and then ideally this trends down and down and down. It's likely going to hit 630, bounce, maybe get just another lower high, but I would expect some kind of consolidation here, right? Some kind of redistribution similar to AMD, right? And then look for a move down under 630. Low key, this would probably just retest. If I'm being completely real with you guys, this will probably retest here, and then look for a move down into 592. So, not gonna lie, guys, this chart looks sexy. I've been saying Meta's gonna sell. Just like I said, these take time, man. These are big processes. Selling these positions takes a lot of counterparty liquidity. It takes bulling people up. It takes multiple tests of the highs, and just finding a counterparty, guys. If they're going to sell a lot of shares, there's got to be a lot of buyers, right? And these take a lot of time, especially when you get quick accumulations like we saw in April, right? And just quick moves like this. There's a lot of people chasing the bid, so you have to, in order to sell, it's going to take a little bit longer, right? So this is a big focus for me as well, just kind of pairing this with AMD in terms of the short side. And that's really all I got, guys. I try to keep it super tight, and there's a couple people, shout out to you guys, that like showed me Nike, and we're kind of talking about DKNG. The charts do look good, right? These kind of look like distributions as well. Like Nike low-key looks like a redistribution. This could come back down into 69 and then maybe a move down into 62. Please take these. Make your own decisions. Build your own little like portfolios where you can like see distributions playing out, redistributions playing out. Take them. Keep like a memoir of them, reflect on them when you see them again, because it's a huge advantage to be able to reflect back on things that you have taken, that you felt the emotions of, like that you can kind of know, like, oh my god, the sentiment is so bullish, but I know this is a redistribution, like I know how I feel. Take notes of that stuff, take screenshots of the charts, day by day, start to build out these portfolios or these little diaries for your future positions when you're not trading with me or you're not listening to me. It's important to be able to have these. So Nike, great chart. I've been tracking Meta for so long, guys, and I just want to be able to kind of slay this demon on my own. So don't listen to me if you don't feel comfortable with Meta. If you like Nike. DKNG, another person showed me this as well. This chart looks insane. I can't find an entry on this one. I feel like this one, I can't find a suitable spot here, but this could have an opportunity as well. Maybe some kind of accumulation that's starting to build out. There's a lot of volume here without a new low really being made. So this could build out something. Just not my cup of tea. But yeah, that's really all I got, guys. I got Meta, AMD short. Very similar, reminiscent of like 4 months back when I saw it setting up in the beginning. Took a little bit of time, but those processes are almost coming to fruition, right? It looks like the distribution should play out where we should get some aggressive downside, and then it's just shorting the pops. And then Tesla, still, maybe a long here. Like I said, the market could just base out, and a lot like Meta, AMD just don't shape up, it's okay. Pivot Tesla and then pivot UNH. Those are probably the two to be looking long for. But if we do see that the tape start to flip, these distributions start to play out where we're seeing bounces and they're really just lower highs. The volume is anemic. It's retesting into those gaps and giving clear signs of LPSYs. Absolutely pull the trigger, and I'm not afraid to lose on those. I think the risk to reward on them is really nice. Like I said, if we can catch this here, guys, a big move down into 550 on Meta. I mean, that's a 25% move for nearly 185 bucks. So those contracts will go crazy. And then AMD, once again, right, just kind of off of this range, if we can get a move down into 138, 15% move, roughly, rounded off to 16, about 26 bucks. Both of those will be really nice with high size or low size, however your conviction is. Should be a good payday on them, but just don't blow your account, please. Shorts are difficult. Shorts are, the market is designed to go up, so I would just say trade it accordingly. Set aside a certain amount of money that you're going to use as your principal for that trade, and don't size over that. Add 1 or 2 contracts at a time. Whatever your tranche ability is. Mine's usually 5 to 10. That's my account, right? If you guys need to add 1 or 2, or just add 1 at a time, do that. But there's a lot of opportunity setting up on, I think, all 4 of these charts. So I just wanted to cover them real quick. Try to build on the momentum that we had. I try to get away from telling people how much money I made because it gets kind of weird. I'm not going to get into detail on that, but really good run on INTC, UNH, shares on both of them. Options on INTC were huge. The UNH ones weren't as big, but INTC kind of carried me for the next 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to be very particular what I trade. Goal really is to, if I take a loss, it's going to be a paper cut. If I take a win, being able to size in, because like I said, the short side has layers to it. If I miss the first leg of it, there is going to be opportunity there to take multiple rolls on it. And if you can size in one big position for a leap or further out, or you can just layer each one, right, and start to roll into shorter dated expirations as the chart starts to look better and better. And with these distributions, there's about 3 or 4 roll opportunities. Specifically Meta, AMD probably has 1 or 2. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it, guys. Hope everyone has a good rest of your weekend. Let's try to build on this momentum. Let's stay really sharp. Let's try to keep things as tight as possible. Let's not, you guys can expand your horizons if you guys want. I know some people like to look at 15, 20 charts, take 5, 6 different trades at once. That's not how I trade. I try to keep things very concentrated. I try to stay well within my parameters of what I trade, which are just accumulation, distribution, mean reversions, with large gap up or gaps downs, and that's or extensions above the EMAs. That's really what I look for, and I try to keep them as tight as I can. And right now, I see 2 really good charts with distributions, and then continuations off of either, UNH is obviously a very clear accumulation. I still want to try to keep eyes on that for continuation to the upside. Tesla is probably the most speculative one, but I still kind of like that chart if we can see some downside. So this is getting real long-winded. My mouth's getting dry. I need to get some water, so I'm going to jump off. Hopefully this is a good collection of everything that I'm kind of looking at. You guys can use it to however you want to use it, right? You guys don't have to take the same positions. Maybe just the way I think about charts can help you, or however you go about it, right? So I'll see you guys on Monday. Let's see if we can get some continued weakness to the downside, and then let's see if these charts shape up. All right, guys. See ya.